I took that to heart. And I said, if you're going to contribute a chapter, everybody has to follow this template. Number one, you begin with the story of a real life child who was harmed because we believed the lies about immigration or the environment or energy. Then I want you to tell me the lies of immigration, the environment, or energy. Then I want you to tell me how those lies harm kids. Then tell me the truth about immigration, the environment, or energy. And then tell me how kids would be protected if we acted on those truths. And then show me who's done it. What municipalities, what governors, what governments have instituted policies that protect kids so we can figure out how to replicate that. So Tiffany's first lie in her education chapter is, children belong to all of us. They're all our children. And ultimately, that is the root of the problems in our education system. It is the answer to the question, to whom do children belong? The right answer to that question is, they belong to parents. The left's answer to that question is, they belong to us, to the state, to the doctors, to the educators, to the counselors, to the teachers, to the schools. And you do hear that lie repeated by people all the way up from the president to individual teachers, to teachers, unions, bosses. You only come to the conclusion that you can hide a child's transgender identity from their parents if your answer to the question, to whom do children belong, is me, the schools.
Well, you've said there's no such thing as a transgender child.
Yeah. Well, and our chapter on transgenderism is written by Billboard Chris, who I believe is suing your government in Australia for some kind of defamation, I believe, that they took against him. So he's got a lawsuit happening in Australia, but he campaigns all around the world. You probably have seen him with sandwich board signs over his body that says, children cannot consent to puberty blockers. And he campaigns on behalf of what is going to largely be considered the biggest medical scandal of our time, which is that you can transition a child from being boy to being a girl. And he makes it very clear, there are no transgender children. He would even say, there's no gender, there's sex. There's two sexes and millions of different personalities. Kids are all different, but it doesn't mean they have different genders. There's either boys or they're girls, and that's all.
Katy, in a recent social media post, you said, quote, beware of headlines framing adults who don't get what they want as victims. That is often the pathway to child victimization. Mm-hmm. That's an interesting statement.
If you get the victim wrong, you get the policy wrong. And there is a victim battle that is going on. And you can see actually the left does this so much better than those on the right. They will choose their victim. They will frame their victim. They will humanize their victim. They will tell a deep, long backstory for their victim. And once you empathize with that victim, you then are ripe for the picking to then take their policy prescription. And so I am always on guard when there's a long backstory of an adult who doesn't get what they want and they've suffered so much. I believe that one was in regard to a man who lives in Western Australia who is a single man. Maybe he's gay, I don't know. I don't know if the article said it or not, but he wanted a baby. But unfortunately, Western Australia had outdated surrogacy laws, so he couldn't make a motherless child in Western Australia. He had to move all the way back to Tasmania. And then he had to go through all the work of finding a woman who would bear the child of the embryo that he created through an egg that he purchased of a woman that the child will never know, so that he could gestate that baby and take the baby away from the birth mother and then raise the child in a motherless home. Isn't that hard for him? So I think that that's an observation that holds pretty well across a variety of different conversations. Adults who don't get what they want are often framed as the victim. And it makes sense because we can usually identify with those adults and how they suffer, their concerns. Even things like economic concerns, I empathize with the women in my world who are struggling to buy groceries right now. I get it. I've been there. I empathize with that. And so it's easy for us to identify and associate with and empathize with adults. The challenge for everybody that actually wants to advance justice is to look very carefully about whether or not that adult really is the victim, or whether or not they are stealing the spotlight from the child who actually will be victimized. because nobody is there to highlight the child's suffering. So that is what I end up doing a lot in my work, especially on the cultural issues when it comes to protecting children's life, family, mind, and body, which sort of summarizes all the culture wars we're having today, is pulling the spotlight off of the adults who don't get what they want and shining it on the children who will really pay the price if we advance this policy idea, if the adult gets what they want in their personal life, if we believe this cultural narrative. So I just think, it's something to be aware of. When there's a big lead up for an adult who's not getting something that they want, look for the child who's paying the price.